Right. And welcome back to the Analyst Test once again. Oh, it's a little bit of a lag over there. Once again, it was supposed to be Dylan who is doing the hosting for today, but somehow, somewhere, I'm here, I'm doing the hosting, but that means I'm driving the driver's seat right now. If you thought that's not the only big change on the desk. We have Coach Tyler with us as well, who is the coach for Harrisburg. And for the previous series, it was perhaps not the result that you of any was looking for, but I'm pretty sure Coach Tyler and Harrisburg is pretty happy. So let's give him some time to comment, or if he's got any thoughts, or if he has anything he wants to say about that series.
Yeah, I think it was kind of results expected for us over here on Harrisburg, but overall, I think I was just really happy with how we showed up for our first match on stage. It's been quite a while since East playoffs, and the performance that we did in East playoffs was really not expected, and we pretty much heavily underperformed in RBO5. So I'm happy that we showed up today. We played a very good game of League of Legends, some great macro, and really happy with what the guys brought forward, even though it was against a team that maybe we were expecting to not have that great of a performance against us. I think we're really happy with overall. Alex and I are really happy with how we played. So.
And on top of that, as this is happening, there's multiple streams that's happening at the same time. You can find them on Unified Live and Unified 2. And this also means that earlier, on the other stream, Slew has won 2-1 against York. That's the big major update for the matches that's happening today. So congratulations to St. Louis University, and rest in peace to any brackets that voted for the underdog York. That includes my own prediction over there, right? So do catch those streams if possible. Have them multi-stream them, show these teams your support. And on to our next series is going to be ASU, Arizona State University, against NAU. And I want to highlight some of the players from ASU. And we'll start off with Firetheft. Right? This guy, he's played amateur forever and is a leader on his team who has said that. That's a large state school that's been competing for a while. Their league program is actually built on player commitment and passion. They haven't been recognized by the university just yet. It's just an entirely player-run initiative so far.
Yeah, and I think that passion and commitment has taken them pretty far for being able to win their conference and beating UCI in the state finals or the finals for the Western Conference. That's pretty big for being a program that doesn't have that school funding and support. So it's really exciting to see them succeed like that.
Yeah, and ASU actually has another highlighted player to talk about, Pseudo. He's gotten really high rank. He's their support player. And I think just Pseudo and Firetheft have a really great teamwork together. They used to be on Supernova together. And these two players are kind of act more as leaders on this team, and it shows with ASU's great teamwork. I don't think ASU is necessarily a super individually mechanically strong team, but the thing that they do have going for them is they have really great teamwork, and they build compositions that can extort that. And I think that showed a lot in their finals against UCI as well.
Now, it's not just these superstars, though, because if you were to look at the entire bracket of 32, and if you were to ask me, what is one team that nobody talks about, but actually has an outsider's chance, perhaps a small chance of winning it all, it could actually be ASU, right? Because they also have the rest of the team, Juke, Jouster, Firinz, and Xayah, and they're rather underrated. Xayah actually moved from their developmental roster to the B team and is now competing for the first time on their main roster. TJ, let's move over to the side of NAU. What do you know about them?
Yeah, so they're definitely the underdog in this game. I did have a chance to speak to their captain, and they wanted to highlight that they're not necessarily expecting to take a huge win here. They're extremely proud of their victory already in their conference. So last year they had a disappointing third place run, but this year they're actually able to win it. They said that their goals for today are to ideally win, but more importantly, make sure that it's not just like a keel over and die type of game. They really want to make ASU sweat for this win instead of just existing. And something kind of interesting about their team is they actually have a bunch of role swaps. They have 4 of the 5 same players from last year. So again, extremely congratulations to them for being able to win. But they're playing different roles. And I think that's super interesting. And that's to accommodate their newcomer support in ttwig.
Yeah, I think these role swaps, they swapped their former AD carry to mid, and their former support is now playing AD. So it's pretty interesting to see what they're going to be able to do with that. Winning their conference is going to give them a lot of confidence boost going into this match after making those changes. Sticking together with those same 4 will give them a lot of synergy going into this top 32. I personally would be really excited to see them utilize that role swap to their advantage and play some unique champions in those roles. There's a lot of teams that will play an AD carried mid, for example. We've seen Kaisa mid show up kind of randomly in and off. We've seen some like Vayne counter picks, some Lucian mid. it'd be cool to see the AD carries now playing mid lane kind of utilize that. And even in the bot lane, we've seen like Seraphine play bottom, we've seen Soraka play bottom. I think they could really use some flexibility there and try and highlight some of those strengths from the role swaps.
Yeah, and with that in mind, you did mention the role swaps. ASU has also done some. Kind of interesting that we get so many role swaps in this game. Over half of the players have played different roles throughout the course of the years, so should be some interesting strategy going on. But Firinz on ASU, he's actually on his third role swap. That's kind of crazy. This year he's playing jungle, but last year he played mid. That was to accommodate a different role swap for ASU, which allowed them to play in the top 32 with Cat on that roof. He's not playing here, but he did last year. And something else that we learned kind of interesting about ASU is that their players are obviously super multi-talented. They go to a large state school, again, not funded, not under an organization, and so their players have a lot of like passions outside of just playing video games. And so, for instance, apparently a tennis god. Like, that's so cool. I love tennis. Like, that's so awesome that he plays tennis and is able to compete in league at such a high level.
Right, speaking of all the role swaps that's happening, usually when people say that, oh, this player role swap from this position to this position, the common perception is that they have a more limited champion pool. But the way that I look at it is that they just simply have a different champion pool, which can utilize all sorts of different flex picks that opens things up for them itself. Now, speaking of those champions, Tyler, is there any champion picks that you're looking forward to seeing in this set?
Yeah, I want to see that Soraka bottom. I think Soraka is really strong. I think it's this patch. It might have been nerfed this patch, but it's been really strong in the meta for a while now. And if some teams have it well practiced, they can bring it out mid, they can bring it out support, they can bring it out AD, and it just brings you a lot of scaling and really good extended team fighting. And I think if you bring a unique strategy like that, where you're playing Soraka bottom, maybe you play some Rengar Ivern. I've seen some Rengar Ivern in their match history, like something that can kind of surprise in matches like this. I think we had a match yesterday that was pretty similar where we had University of Texas Austin, UT Austin play, and they were heavily underdogs, right? But they brought some unique strategies on their way. They had the Zed, they had the Heimerdinger bottom. I think if you can bring something like that to the stage against a team that's heavily favored against you, you can throw some wrenches their way, and who knows, maybe you might even take a game.
Right, somebody ring up the Twitterati. There's an advocate for Soraka on this desk. But either way,
I'm
right?
also Soraka advocate, just to be clear.
As I always say, it's one thing to innovate, it's another to pick the random button and lock in a champion. And I think that this Soraka advocacy might see some legs over here, because if I'm the underdog team going up against the major conference, right? If I'm NAU going up against ASU, if I were to look at the compositions that both teams like to play, you tend to see a lot of Jinx from Arcane, a lot of scaling, a lot of Victor, a lot of Veigar, right? So the big question here is from ASU's side, are we going to see the same, like, let's hold things back, the CLOL special, you're going to draft the Bronzodia of scaling there? And are we going to see two people stand off in terms of the game's going to come down to a 35-minute team fight, or will one team go for the Soraka or a champion that hyper scales beyond what most of these compositions really go for? Perhaps maybe we might even see Soraka mid or Soraka AD carry, like you guys were mentioning. Or perhaps will we see ASU looking at this and saying, yep, this is a team, they're arguably weaker, we can hand stiff them, go in there, show them some fingers, and they're shown to have these proactive options when they play the likes of Lucian and Syndra in the mid lane as well. So speaking of all of that, let's move into some predictions. How do you guys think this series is going to go?
Okay, I'll go first. I think it's going to be a quick 2-0 for ASU. I think they have better fingers, as Jensen mentioned, and I think they'll use it. And on top of that, I think they will have some great teamwork to show off with that too. And I think it's going to be a pretty quick series.
I'm going to have to agree. I do think it'll be a 2-0, but I'm not sure it's going to be quick. I wouldn't necessarily say it's going to be long. I think it'll be pretty methodical and maybe like a 27-ish minute game where ASU respects their opponent, they show up disciplined, they're ready to win. Again, that's not to say that they're not commanding or in the lead, just that they're going to be fairly certain that they don't do random items and then extend the game for no reason. So 2-0 win, but not like a 18-minute win, I don't think.
As for me, I would have to agree that I think that this should be a rather simple 2-0 victory for ASU. The general vibe I'm getting from them is that they're happy to be here, they're happy to play. That might make them actually put up some challenges, but I think in the overall depth of what ASU can bring to the table, should be able to make this a complete wash on their side. And with that, we do know that Arizona State has chosen to be on red side, and we'll be handing things over to a wonderful Costas, Rebel Fox, and Speedy.
Grapes.
Yo, what's up?
You good?
Yeah. This is what this is what you do. This Jensen showed us at the desk. You start off the swing with some silence. I'm learning from the best here.
This is true.
In terms of the broadcast, once again, thank you Jensen and the rest of the desk for sending us over here. And here we are, second matchup of the day here on the Academy stream. It is the Arizona Civil War with ASU taking on Northern Arizona. Rebel, I mean, this is, not as an exciting matchup, so to speak, in terms of expectations, but, when you are Northern Arizona coming up against the champions of this Western Conference, they're always going to come out swinging, coming out with something maybe a little bit more exciting.
They truly will. We're hoping again that a lot of these teams that have been showing us some of this kind of play, especially from this D group, being out a bunch of random different champions, being able to play some of the comfort stuff that you were known for when you were able to win your divisions and kind of make your noise as your team was able to do. It's led to some pretty exciting results, even if it doesn't lead to success most of the time. So that's kind of the fun part of being inside of this round of 32 here in Collegiate. So expectations are for that for the side of Northern Arizona, and of course ASU. It's about getting business done here today. They are the expected favorites. They're the number one out of the Western. There's a lot of kind of expectations for them to make it even further in this bracket. And so this is just step number one along that path for them.
Yeah, and notably, if we take a look at the bracket right over here, it is actually Converse that will be their opponent who took the upset against Bethany yesterday. So maybe, a little bit lower of a seeded team that would be facing the winner of this matchup. ASU might be a little bit happier about that as they did make it into the top 16. And I know ASU, one thing that we were talking about with them is when I was talking to their coach Sherv about how this team liked to function, their Twitter page was something that he really wanted to highlight. This is one of the memes that we have here. As we said, did take that Western victory against UCI in a bit of a trade deal of all trade deals, Rebel.
For a roster of people with multiple talents, like our desk had alluded to, man, like the memes on that page are pretty solid. they're pretty exceptional. So they are very confident walking into this one. They had a fantastic Western split to be able to take that championship of their own volition. Make sure to check them out when you get the opportunity, because you get bangers like this all over the place on their meme page.
Oh my god, it's the train pummeling straight towards the round of 16 is what their hopes will be as we get ready for the draft of this game. Let's talk about Northern Arizona for a little bit, Rebel, because I know a lot of expectations have been, set here for ASU, but this is an NAU team, as we said, from the Big Sky Conference that really were happy with the improvements that they made from last year to this year in terms of getting into this top 32 with their championship victory. Specifically, I think the jungle matchup is an interesting one here. Funbari Onsen, again, is a player that I know the desk highlighted, and I know you had some pretty good things to say about.
Yeah, it was pretty exciting, them being able to bring back a lot of their players, even with some role swaps, having that kind of consistency over a couple of years. Usually doesn't happen within a bunch of programs that don't have a little bit more structure to them. My apologies, especially for some of the partner conferences that come in here. And so, Northern Arizona being able to bring back the majority of the roster, showing up big, being able to improve on last year, I think is a very rare opportunity that they're able to actually put up here. To expand upon the point that you were making, of course, when it comes down to their team, they have good players across the board. They have a lot of kind of unique picks. But the one we're keeping our eye on mostly is Funbari Onsen, who is just an absolute monster. Had the most kills in the Big Sky Conference, had the largest KDA in the Big Sky Conference, had one of the highest damage shares, definitely the highest damage share among all junglers in the Big Sky Conference as well. He's kind of a monster. So got some champions in like the Shyvana is kind of a really big crux for him. We talked about in the last series how we had a Malice 2.0. We might have another one here as well, as he's got some Evelyn as well in that back pocket. And of course, we have the Rangar and the Ivern as well, which is another thing that they could have up their sleeve in the right circumstances for a series like this.
This is what makes these series fun, seeing what kind of picks the underdogs want to bring out here to try and get some sort of sucker punch in onto the champions of a big major conference. We got the draft started up in just a little bit, but just in terms of the way that this matchup works, we kind of touched on the jungle and how they like to play some of these heavy scaling, heavy farming champions, along with the mid laner here in FER Nett. Most play champions being the Zillion, the Corki, the Veigar, things like that in terms of just scaling up. So in terms of mid-jungle proactivity in the early game, not necessarily something that Northern Arizona typically looks for, which can be an advantage that Arizona State can press.
Absolutely is, especially with Firinz being able to do quite a bit. Jouster having quite a bit of a solid split himself. And Firetheft in that top lane, I think, is one that we're talking about and being able to do quite a bit in this top lane matchup. To me, it suggests that if Northern Arizona want to play around their jungle, they have to really play around the jungle, right? Like if you're taking Ivern and you're taking the Rengar alongside it, you're playing into the 2v2 just as much as you possibly can. There is no half measure here where you can take a Rengar and then you can take like a Victor and then lane or something like that. You got to be ready and raring to scrap if the time cut. Yeah, all into a jungle pick if you're going to go for something crazy like that. Otherwise, keep it standard. Just try to play out whatever game plan you've got going for the side of Arizona.
Well, let's see what the game plan ends up being. Starting off the draft for our second series of the day. Already the jungle league, the focus here in the bans. And Evelyn taken away. Don't think we're going to be seeing Funbari on that one this series.
Yeah, I actually don't think that we're going to be seeing Firinz on Udyr either, because I know that the coach and also Firinz, they are really, really high on the Udyr pick. And so that's something that they use consistently both in the Northern Conference. I know they've been scrimming with it, and so it's a very popular champion to take off the board. Not shocking really either. I think even last year when they were running, it's a pretty popular champion, I think, for Caitlyn to just be a part of Arizona. I seem to remember them running this even in previous iterations of the roster. And so even into the modern day, that continues to carry through as a little bit of a tradition. Jishu is somebody that I'm sure we'll be talking about later on to the stream as being kind of a newer player to the roster from last year's iteration and being a very talented member himself as we continue through the training phase. And the Zillion, of course. Why Arizona, man? Like, I know you got an amazing scout coach in Sure, but you're taking away all of our fun here.
Yeah, I know. We just wanted to see some cool pickups here, but it seems like ASU did do their homework. I think mid lane Zillion is definitely a pick that both Nett and Juke Jouster really like to play. So seeing that one taken away, especially on the red side, is probably going to be something that we see time and time again. Our third ban on the NAU side will be that Lucian to be that sort of flexibility pickup here, and we'll see what ASU have on the other side.
Very interesting to see that as well. I'm waiting to see whether or not it's the Shyvana also taken off the board, just to make sure that Funbari Onsen has no fun and then he's just Bari Onsen for the game, which would be unfortunate for us at least. If it's not the case, I think that they have to go to that because it's just so much ridiculous comfort. Oh man, the Malice jungle. Really? We're actually Malice jungling today for Arizona State, truly.
So we talked about how Skelly was like kind of the Malice jungle here for University of North America. Funbari Onsen is like 100% Malice 2.0. We saw. I think even in the Twitch chat, people were kind of going through it in terms of like the expectations here for this Northern Arizona jungler. We have Evelyn in the card that's taken off the board already. So 2 of those big picks off the board. And here's something that we didn't see in the last series, Rebel. Seraphine on the B1.
Got banned out twice in a row, making sure that wasn't going to go over to Northern Arizona, or my apologies, from University of North America, now going to Northern Arizona, another NA team, who would have thought. Able to put that in a couple of different roles, and one of these supportive type champions that could help out if you have it in mid lane to assist with Funbari Onsen if you go to something very aggressive, or you throw it into the bottom lane for some additional range, and especially with the Nautilus on the board. Well, again, the hook is valuable for being able to pull in relatively squishy champions. I think that you would be more than comfortable taking that if you're Picolo or Twig, depending on who's got it in the pool.
Yeah, and again, can flex to a number of different spots. Wouldn't even be surprised to see FER Nett picking that one up either. But on the other side, it's just the bot lane rounded out here for Arizona State. Zishu has been very, very dominant in lane, picking up things like this Lux, things like the Ezreal Karma, and so now on a very high lethality damage pick in Xayah, again with Pseudo on the Nautilus, gonna try to do some damage. On the other side, Northern Arizona is going a little bit more stock standard. This is the MF Leona. I know Jensen used the word Bronze Zodiac to describe some of the compositions that can open up for NAU, and I mean these are 2 pickups that kind of match that formula.
You like it because the Misfortune is like the stock standard counter to the Xayah in the modern, kind of drafting eventuality that we've seen across all regions and across all. It's like Xayah is the counter to Jinx, and then if like the Jinx is off the board for both and a Xayah gets taken blind, Misfortune is one of the responses that people have gone to as like another early game champion that you can take to try to attack the laning phase, which is doubled down on by the fact that they grabbed the Leona into the Nautilus, which back in the day was kind of like a standard, like you get Nautilus or you get that matchup and you're in a good place. If the Nautilus plays defensively, the lane is fine. I don't think it's something that they can necessarily press super hard unless they get jungle attention, so there's that to make mention of, but at least it's a good laning phase for Picolo and Twig.
Yeah, and it'll probably be a pretty big topic conversation, as both of these bot laners would really like to go in and fight early on. And the junglers might have a bit of an impact in that. See, the Jarvan locked in here for Firinz was playing a lot of Trundle actually throughout the Western playoffs, and so he will be taking a bit of a different perspective, and it really is Malice 2.0 here.
Truly.
The Hecarim locked in. after all of those other jungle picks were banned away?
Man, right now it's actually Northern Arizona who's going for big AoE. I think the A in NA stands for AoE when it comes to Northern Arizona's NA because, goodness gracious, they've got every single AoE ultimate under the sun to utilize in a team fight, all of them traveling in a line. Arizona State, if you are caught in a corridor one time sleeping, like, I think Sherv's going to make you run laps in this game because, man, you are just asking to be knocked up, asking to be run down by multiple line-type skill shots. They themselves have a pretty well-rounded composition. You can see you got early game out of the Jarvan. You got good mid-game spiking out of both the Xayah and the Ahri. You got late-game damage out of Firetheft. He's able to take quite a bit here into his own hands, which is an expectation since Firetheft is one of the big veterans of Arizona State. I kind of like the way that both drafts have landed here. To me, like you said, the Bronze Zodia composition is having like the easy big AoE ultimates for the side of Northern Arizona. Means that the team fight's easier to play out. I actually think it's a good idea. If you're trying to throw a punch against Arizona State, this is one of the ways to do it. If you get a pure 5-on-5, you can win them by hitting a couple of really big ultimates.
Yeah, and don't let the name mean like kind of assume that we're talking like really bad about the way that Northern Arizona set their competition up. I mean, I think that this is a good idea, as you said. Try to just team fight Arizona State. They both kind of have these big team fight competition. I would argue that NAU's is a little bit easier to execute since it's just that press R key and go versus Arizona State where there's a little bit more mobility, more engaged potential and things like that. So I do think, you know, if you can get to the later stages of the game, these compositions do match up against each other nicely and we could see some really explosive fights.
To me, it's like Northern Arizona has ways to win the fight at the beginning by hitting massive ultimates, but if you continue on in the fight, really it's actually Cawww a bird that has a lot of like the continued play, right? Seraphine's good with her spell rotations when they come back up, but oftentimes like once a fight breaks out, once the ultimate's down, it's unlikely you're getting a bunch of other spell rotations, especially after the engage that ASU has. The one person who might be able to live through that is Cawww a bird on this Wukong, where like your abilities are rotating so fast, you're able to be this fighter in the backline, you could potentially throw a bunch of disruption, but ultimately it is a press R composition, which means if you're missing Rs or you're using Rs unnecessarily ahead of time in fights or not getting any value out of them, it's a very bad situation. And Xayah can punish that, but more specifically, the person that can punish that is Gangplank, which is why over the course of this game, while I'm looking at team fights, how they're being set up, how like both teams are kind of operating, I'm keeping an eye on the scaling of both top laners because I feel like if we're getting very consistent time or like fights over time, when the ultimates are down, when we burnt a bunch of cooldowns, those are the two that are going to be doing the consistent kind of things at the end. There's not really that spell contingent. They're a lot more contingent on being able to use very low cooldown abilities to affect fights.
Right, and I'm really excited to see how that one ends up matching up. My one concern for Northern Arizona is that, of course, the laning phase might be a bit of a problem. We were talking about how Zishu and Pseudo are one of the strongest bot lanes that we might have in Collegiate and one of the most underrated bot lanes we might have here in this top 32. And on a pretty standard matchup here with the Xayah into the MF could be a little bit scary, and I think one thing that I talked to Sherv about in terms of how Juke Jouster is able to play the game is he really likes to dominate laning phase, especially, and that can really be enabled on a champion here like this Ahri going up against FER Nett Seraphine, who likely will cede a lot of resources early on to just make sure they can get to that later stage in the game. So I think it's a similar case to what we saw in our last series with University of NA against Harrisburg, in which if you are this team with the kind of scaling, we want a team fight at like 15-20 minute composition like NAU, you need to make sure you don't fall behind before the wallet gap ends up hitting you hard.
And that to me is like, Firinz has a lot of places to want to attack on the map. Like you can go into Zishu and Pseudo on the bottom side of the map. They want to make aggressive calls. You can play into Juke Jouster and shut out the Seraphine in the game. There's too many places. Once again, I say the phrase is my favorite one to say when a jungler has everywhere to go. The cup runneth over with options here for the Jarvan. It's just about being able to make sure that you're taking advantage of it. A couple of ganks in the early game will go a very far distance.
It's the first strike on Firinz as well. Going to try to get a little bit of extra gold into the pockets. We were talking about the wallet diff, and let's see if it ends up holding through. Arizona State looking to get back into the round of 16, but their first tough task will be Northern Arizona.
We had a very nice discussion about First Strike Jarvan walking into this one, and it likely actually indicates that it's going to be like the tank Jarvan, because that's what people tend to do with this First Strike rune, is that they go the I can't remember what his name is off the top of my head. The rogue jungler, the Malrang build, where like you take First Strike and then you go full tank with like sometimes anathemas, oftentimes you're going chem tank as like another item on top of it. The exploration of that is interesting because if you end up kind of clamping off at least one or two damaging members of this team, so say For example, like Nett is going more supportive on the Seraphine build in the mid lane, and say Cawww Bird isn't really heavy in damage. You throw in Anathemas into this build, and you put it onto like Misfortune or whoever it is that's doing damage, and you're reducing that damage by more than any other tank item in the entire game could actually be giving you, which is why it's super valuable. So in a game like this, there is a little bit of flexibility that I'm looking for from Firinz to decide whether the Anathemas is going to be good, but if you got 3 members that are doing damage, able to kill you effectively, it's better to just go for the flat kind of like resistance items across the board.
Right, and I think the big thing when we talk about the way that this Jarvan rune setup is in place is it's not necessarily about getting the first strike damage and the first strike extra gold. It's about allowing extra runes in the inspiration tree to being unlocked. Things like that futures market and also the reduced cooldown of some of the summoner spells. So I think that's what Firinz wants to go for and make sure that he can get to a point where he can be that utility figure for Arizona State down the line, because that's kind of what he does. Not necessarily a carry jungler for Arizona State. He's more of a cerebral player, has role swapped a bunch of times over the past couple of years, and now in a semi-player coach position, so to speak, and he's going to try to just make some plays and help the rest of his team carry.
Absolutely. Looking at the jungle pathing right now, you do have the Hecarim heading down towards the bottom side of the map. Nice level 2, immediately a pull, but they're very far back, so I'm glad that the defense was there for both teams. As you can see, again, the Hecarim heading down to bottom side in an attempt to grab something. And actually, it's kind of crazy. It's the red Raptors into Gromp. So just the quickest level 3 from Firinz, just as much as possible. He got caught out on a ward. It's Funbari Onsen, so Firinz might be wrapping around to look for his red buff. He knows he doesn't have it either. This is a really early invade from Firinz to be able to do something like this. He's got the push in bot lane to work with as well.
Here we go, Firinz looking for the damage. The flag and drag comes through. Funbari Onsen already chunked down to half HP. Which of the members will get here first? Arizona State trying to respond here. Zeshu landing in the feathers. The blade caller finds the root. Picolo has the ignite ticket, and Zeshu's trying to go for the chase, but he might have gone a little bit too far. Juke Jouster, the first mid laner to arrive to the fight. Firinz gets the flag and drag flashed away from him, and nobody dies in the invade.
It doesn't look like the red buff was taken by Firinz in the end anyway, which means that I think in the grand scheme of things, the fact that they weren't able to grab up the red buff, they weren't able to push into the opposing jungle. There's a little bit of farm discrepancy now into the bottom lane. I think Picolo had to wait for the wave to bounce back, and so a couple of minions got lost to the void right there. But outside of that, it is just a decent trade and a decent defense of the red buff coming out from Northern Arizona, which is solid. Because Firinz, I thought, had a really nice game plan right there, but just able to survive it off the back of Nett not really needing that many resources, able to be low econ, and Misfortune being able to dip off the wave as well pretty quickly to make sure there was nothing there. Pretty much the only thing that gets lost are the summoners, the heal, and the 2 on Twig right there in the bottom lane, which could be punished right now. Firinz is back.
This early game is just so dangerous here for Northern Arizona. Firinz still has the flash, Piccolo as well, and it looks like they're just going to accept the handshake and walk away.
Yeah, now the problem is the wave, because the wave's in a very, very bad spot for Northern Arizona's bot lane. They're already down 4 minions, there's a massive stack, and there's another wave coming in right now, which means Arizona State could hold it where it's at right now, and the Xayah has already backed, which means that, like, you're not really getting much of an advantage by coming back to the lane with any kind of buy. You're coming back with a tier if you're the Misfortune, alongside that Doran's Ring, which could indicate a little more AP in this than what could have previously been considered inside of this. But if Zishu just kind of holds the wave where it is right now, which it looks like he is, it's going to be really tough to break that if you're Northern Arizona. You're going to have to rely on using the spells to try to clean out the wave and bounce it off the tower, but Zishu's just picking up so much resource off of this.
Yeah, such already a big farm lead here for the Xayah. We talked about how the bot lane could be blown open a little bit for ASU if Northern Arizona do not play their cards right. And just that one little play on the invade from Firinz really set the tone for how the lane wants to be played. 15 CS gap at this point. In terms of itemization, a lot more damage, and the income might be pretty similar based on the way that these 2 bot laners ended up going for resets and stuff, but still, it's double longsword versus basically a Doran's Ring in terms of the DPS, so Zishu and Pseudo is definitely in a very comfortable spot right now.
And now, like, the cool part about this also was that Pseudo left that bottom lane, not just on, like, a roam elsewhere to, like, look for something, because I think he was just covering the map for the most part, but also bailing when the freeze was held by Zishu, because they knew that there was no play to be had from Picolo and Twig, which gave all of that farm that was held there for a bit by Zishu directly to the pocket. It's just solo gold into Zishu's pocket, and it's a 22 CS lead now for the Xayah. I think ultimately it's going to end up being somewhere in the realm of about an entire, 2 waves or a kill worth of gold, and you can see they're still getting pressured. And this just bottom wave stack that ended up happening, it's caught really well. The calling right here from Firinz and the communication with Zeshu and Pseudo in the bot lane net them not only that massive kind of advantage with solo experience going into the Xayah, but also the Dragon getting netted as well.
And you mentioned this before the game started, but Firinz really just has the ability to do whatever he wants on the map. You have pushing mid, pushing bot lane now. Firetheft's always going to be able to hold his own with the extra range advantage against Cawww a bird in the early game. So it's just going to be Firinz getting that very early dragon to start things off and continuing to push the pace of this game a little bit.
Yeah. Tough position to be in right now also for Picolo and Twig is, again, it's just so much that you've got half health now for Picolo. He doesn't have many flat stats. The Doran's Ring is good, of course, for the poke on the E, but like if you get into an auto-trading battle, you're never winning that in 100 years against Ishu, even with the attack speed bonus. It is just the poke on the Misfortune that's going to be menacing to deal with, so being down 20 minions kind of tough. And across the map, again, top lane is relatively even. I think Firetheft has the wave there, pushed in pretty far. He wants to break this just to make sure that, Cawww a bird can't keep him there for too long. And Funbari Onsen kind of runs into his ward, and so he's able to back off, and it just means that Cawww a bird is going to be able to hold that where it's at for the moment. But ultimately, I mean, Firetheft's up 10 minions. If he wanted to, he could just hang out for a little bit, wait for his jungler to show up, and Firinz is already on the top side to make a play happen if he needs to help break that.
Yeah, and it looks like he's pretty comfortable at this point, maybe feeling a bit confident in his ability to fight out a gank with Firinz in the area as well. So it's a little bit interesting. Rebel, you got something?
Picolo just backed! What did they do to his health bar? He was down half the health bar.
It was not good. Yeah,
it was very bad, but I didn't think it got so bad that he needed to outright back. He lost 10 minions, maybe 12 minions right there. That's huge. He's already down 30 CS. Like, that was ridiculous how much he just had to back and lose.
The wave is still crashing as well. A little bit unfortunate there, as Zeshu already doubling up Picolo in the bot side in terms of CS. Pseudo going for a roam. Nett's not going to be able to get caught out. Did burn the flash, but that will be all at this point. No kills just yet, but already a 1,000 gold lead opening up for the Sun Devils.
Yeah, and like Pseudo can just access anywhere on the map. He's heading up towards top lane where they have vision control. They know that there's no vision anywhere nearby, but it's the Rift Herald that they're really after. And Wave's coming back to Firetheft. It's held in a good position, which means an overextension would have to come out from Wukong to break this. So Firetheft with good wave control as well to make sure that Firinz is kind of free to take this. I don't want to see the back because they see Cawww a bird on place. Love that right there. Cancels the back. Make sure that the Nautilus is going to be around when the inevitable clay comes through. There we go.
The dredge line from Bari in trouble. Maybe at about half HP. Encore coming out, landing onto 2. Not a whole lot of damage just yet in the Northern Arizona composition, but it might just be enough. No, first blood secured for Juke, Jouster, ASU on the board.
Got a little more back and forth there than I think they would have wanted it to, given how much setup that ASU was actually able to get into that area with a number of their members before anything crazy happened, especially in like a 3v4 situation. That got a lot closer than I think they wanted it to be, to being 1-for-1 in the first blood going over. But ultimately, Arizona State walk out with everything. They get the first blood, they get the Rift Herald. The wave and top was not fixed at all. Zeshu's still pulling solo experience and solo gold from these minions in the bottom lane. Not getting punished in the slightest here.
Yeah, really nicely done. And you could see some of the AoE that we could potentially see down the line, but I don't think it was enough just yet in order for things to happen. Let's take a look at the replay. Funbari getting chunked really low. The damage almost there.
Yeah, and the thing is, like, Nett saving that with that massive ultimate almost, again, netted them a return kill. If they get Firinz here, obviously they're not going to get the Rift Herald off of that, but at least they get the first blood, and they get it either into the Seraphine or into the Hecarim, both of whom are good late-game options to be able to put gold into in exchange for, like, a kill going into Ahri is a kill going into Ahri, a kill going into, Gangplank is going to be tough to deal with, but at least they get something back. But right there, they get no kill, and they lose everything else across the map as well. As Arizona, again, this is a ridiculously clean play right now coming out from them.
We're going to pressure now again towards this bottom lane. Decent chunk of damage coming out from Picolo, but it's a 2-level gap down here in the bottom side.
Yeah.
It's not looking good right now for the Northern Arizona bottom lane. They have the scaling, though. Finally, Picolo unlocking level 6. The bullet time will be available on a potential play that can happen here. Juke, Jouster, and Firinz looking for the blast cone play. They're going to spot up Funbari, though. Let's see what ends up happening. Solar Flare coming out. Bullet time doesn't find a whole lot of value, and now Firinz is going in onto the Leona. Cannon Barrage comes out for Firetheft as well. But the Ignite's actually taking Arizona, actually losing out in terms of the HP advantage. They still have the numbers, though. Shelly's going to be popped in. That is almost certainly the first tower gone.
Really big props, actually, to the side of Northern Arizona, having Funbari Onsen in a position to be able to actually deny this from happening, because it could have been a very mean situation right there. Here,
still looking. He has the Onslaught of Shadows, and there's no ulti on the side of Zeshu. Pops both the summoner spells, but the Hecarim might just be a bit too fast. Beautiful dredge line coming out from Pseudo to pull the horsey right back into his place, and that will be enough to prevent the life of the AD carry from going down.
Pseudo's a monster, man. Being able to protect his ADC like that with the Nautilus, not having to burn the summoner spells himself, and yes, Zeshu burnt both the summoners as well as the defensive ultimate to make sure you don't fall out of that. But they have yielded nothing to the side of Northern Arizona. Like, you're usually fine in that situation, right? Zeshu doesn't have a shutdown yet inside of this game. They had already taken bottom tower, all the plates. They were at a massive gold advantage. They could have like given that kill over, not worried about it that much. It's one kill, what's going to happen? But no, they're still playing for the cleanest possible game that they can, denying everything that they can from Northern Arizona to make sure that that's not going to be the case, that they're going to be able to walk out of these situations in incredibly clean fashion. Up 4K at 11 minutes into the game, and you wouldn't think it because this isn't like 19 kills, this isn't like 10, 15 kills in their pockets here at the beginning of the game, all that gold that they've got in the wallet. No, it doesn't matter. It's not kills. They're just like running around the map, doing fantastic things, shutting out minion waves from Northern Arizona.
Oh, and Nett's in a lot of trouble as well. The Arcor lands onto 3. Solar Flare stuns 2, but there's just not enough damage just yet. Juke Jouster picking up another kill, and now the Dragon has been started up by NAU. Will they go for the fight? Cataclysm will lock them in. Here comes the bullet time, just not there yet. Way too far ahead, Arizona State are. Double kill onto the Jarvan and the Dragon as well.
And so far, like, Cawww isn't able to enter this fight because he can't TP in. I think he TP'd to the mid wave, but again, it's not unlocked TPs yet, so you teleport to the mid tower, but that's all you're able to get right there. And that means that, like, Wukong doesn't access the fight. You didn't need Firetheft here because your early game is so much stronger. Firinz on the Jarvan has been absolutely mean. Your Jouster and Zeshu are putting out enough damage to be able to carry the rest of the team. They're doing great things. The charm didn't matter, and like I said, a little bit of stormtroopering going on where, like, Twig was here. He, like, pulled off of the dragon. I don't know if they're trying to blitz down the dragon here, but obviously they have to make a very clean decision after the Cataclysm goes down. It's a nice attempt from Picolo to try to throw some damage back, but ultimately, like, it's just Arizona is able to focus down anyone they want and just pick up the dragon on the back end. Like, it's just free. It's like they leashed it for him right there, as well as handed over a couple of kills. Again, Arizona just playing incredible League of Legends right here.
Yeah, this is a bit of a... I don't know if Northern Arizona gives away free scholarships, but you know, ASU is playing this game pretty well at this point. The macro has been immaculate. Sherv and the coaching staff doing a good job. Cawww proccing the Conqueror with the Cyclone, but Pseudo's here in the area as well, so it's not going to be much else after that.
Yeah, it looks like red buff is going to go into Zeshu. They're going to give him that one and then put him in the mid lane, it looks like. So Pseudo just needed something to do with his time, so he comes up here to hover Firetheft just to make sure that there's nothing really to worry about. Because you don't really have to worry about Jouster. I mean, he's the Ahri. He's got the ultimate to be able to get out of any bad situations. And Pseudo, once again, he's hanging out here. This information was given to him. Pseudo is a big brain here. Like, how many plays now has it just been that, like, I've heard about his experience, his calling. He's slowly, like, it very quietly is one of the top players on, like, the support ladder right now in North America. It has been for the last couple of seasons. It's showing in so many ways here.
And they get the kill onto Firetheft here on the dive. Cawww flash away from the tower, and he goes down! And here comes the healing! The oranges are there! It's the trade 2-for-1. Firetheft falls, but he takes 2 down with him.
I'm Warp Tonic, man, so good with the Corrupting Pot because it looked like an orange, but he hit an orange before that, then also used the Corrupting Potion to get that last tick of health, which was enough, I think, to kill off the Hecarim on the back end of that, because otherwise, I mean, he might be able to run out, he might be able to get that kill, it would have come out just like 1 turret shot faster, and, then Firetheft goes down, at least it's a 1-for-1, which is something you can call, but a 2-for-1 under the tower, you get no turret plates, you lose, like, a couple of minions to the side of Arizona State, they don't care. That's the first thing they bled out. To be quite honest, if I would be shocked actually if Sherv isn't screaming at them for giving over a kill, because right now it seems like they're playing for their lives, just defending every ounce of scrap. Everything that Arizona State is trying has to be perfect because they will not give an ounce right now.
I think it's also crucial that Firetheft was able to get a lot of the wave down here. I mean, getting the tower aggro procced early and then perfectly orange at the right time. I mean, it was just too clean.
Yeah. Yeah, it looked like it was, I thought it was the other way around. It was the Corrupting Pot first that he did, and then the orange, like you said. So a good catch on that one, the orange coming second, which didn't matter that much because all it was the heal being able to keep them alive for 1 additional tower shot. They're back to try it again.
Round 2 fight. No flash on Firetheft this time. Gonna get hit up by the double knockup, but he will cleanse away from the crowd control. Finally, shutdown goes in on the Cawww. Pseudo a little bit too late for Firinz in the area as well, but they don't want to go for the turn.
And we talked about this being the potential area of attack for Northern Arizona ahead of time, right? Like, you've got the supportive mid lane that's supposed to be there for Funbari Onsen, but he's on more of a ganking type champion now and a team fighting champion later. And there's not much like you could do to salvage the bottom lane. The bottom lane has been in a rough spot since the beginning of the game. And so eventually they came to this conclusion that they're like, okay, Cawww on the Wukong, maybe that's somewhere we can attack. We can shut down the Gangplank as well, and they're able to make a couple of plays around that now. So at least Arizona, or Northern Arizona that is, are able to come back a little bit inside of this game, finding a couple of plays to the top side to get themselves back. But again, it's more of a like, what are they losing elsewhere? Because they are losing a bunch of pressure onto the bottom side. They're losing, like, they lost mid tower after that last play as well. So they lost a 2-for-1 and also the mid tower. So again, Arizona State willing to punish them on the other side of the map, but most of the time their plays just haven't been working anyway. So everything is just feeling good.
Yeah, on top of that, you know, with all the attention that Northern Arizona have been putting towards that top side, Dragon is almost certainly going over to ASU at this point. Look at all the vision around the bottom side jungle here for Arizona State into the NAU side. It's just, they'll know exactly where anybody here from NAU will be around this setup, and they're already in the area around the pit. It's going to be that Mountain Soul point likely going over, which is not a good sign here if you are Northern Arizona with this big team fighting composition.
No, it is not. It also means that take away the 15-second. Oh, that's a big fight. Okay.
Picolo already dead here. Depth charge landing on it onto 2. Funbari and Onsen going to try to get something done here. They will shut down Juke Jouster. And watch Cawww. He still is here. Has the ulti available. Firinz going in with the flag and drag to finish off now on a killing spree. But Cawww is here. FER Nett is here as well. Here comes the encore, but it's flashed away from. Nobody gets charmed up by the Seraphine, and Cawww is more like an ow, I am dead. Firetheft securing the kill. Dragon almost certainly going to be going over as well.
And a little bit of fight back here, because again, Northern Arizona realizes they need to start grouping, need to start putting their ultimates together in one fell swoop against the side of Arizona State. But they're not strong enough to really make anything happen because of it. Like I said, Cawww is getting into the right position here. They're able to find a couple of members together in the same place. Picolo just got raced over the wall from Juke Jouster before anything else. The fact that Funbari Onsen actually survived here for so long and was able to get a kill looked promising. But again, you have no damage on the backside of this. Seraphine is not in the fight yet. Misfortune's already been removed. And it means that Zeshu just kind of gets to stand back and play like a normal ADC, which it's lethality Xayah, which isn't that great. But at least you do get to play like a standard, throwing damage into whoever's in front of you and not worrying about much else. And it means that, again, once the ultimates are down, once you've lost a couple members, there's no fight back for Northern Arizona. I like that they found something around Arizona State, even if they weren't trying to, right? Like, Picolo got picked off right there, and that's what caused all of it. And now they're also on a 4-minute timer where the soul is going to be up, and they're probably going to have to team fight around that, down 5,000-6,000 gold, if not more, because of Arizona State. But at minimum, we see them use this composition at least once in the game, which is more than I can say for some.
Yeah, at least you're kind of going through it with the strategy. You're trying to press all the R buttons together. Hasn't been like the greatest opportunity for all 5 of them, but you can see certainly 2 or 3 big members here are able to take down some of the stronger players here on this Arizona State team. So just gotta wonder if the scaling will be able to come through enough, but I don't know if it will be. Arizona State looking very, very strong. Already 2 items completed for a lot of their members. Got the Eclipse Man Immune here for Zeshu. You have the Zonia's Hourglass for Firinz as well for even more survivability and some denial maybe of the AoE that comes out.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is like, one of the coolest things about this composition, actually, we get a little bit of a fight right here.
In a little bit of trouble.
Well, easy.
He gets away.
Yeah, easy enough. And the big thing is, like, when you have big cooldown team fights like this from Northern Arizona, if you hit an encore on a bunch of people, that's massive. Being able to bounce it off of somebody is humongous. Being able to be caught out by like a Hecarim if he pushes you back. One of the best tools for that is just go untargetable, right? Like, they can't bounce off of the Jarvan. You can't bounce the encore off of him if he presses the go golden button, and then all at that point, the encore is just not bouncing into your backline, not able to do what it needs to do inside of a fight, the way that Nett is probably anticipating it to do. So this is a combo breaker from Firinz, being able to deny that, as well as giving him some additional tank stats, giving him some cooldown reduction. The AP doesn't really matter all that much. It's really more about the active usage in this case. But I do like it for being able to break, chaining ultimates together here from a composition that's kind of designed around doing exactly that.
Yeah, and Firinz, it's very smart optimization. Of course, Jarvan with the AP doesn't scale as well, but just having that stasis is so good on a champion like this that is just looking to engage. I mean, that's why you see Jarvan support sometimes come into the meta in a couple of different situations throughout the years, and just a really good initiator here for Firinz, who actually did play support just I think a year ago on ASU.
He did. Ooh. More shenanigans here from these 2 teams. A bit of back and forth. I think our desk had talked about this, where like this is about what we expected, where Arizona State is playing really clean League of Legends. They're not giving up all that much. Arizona's punishing them where they can, but they're not able to accomplish all that much in terms of setting a win condition. Where Arizona State is doing the exact opposite. They're just playing around what they've set for themselves in the Forward Dragon, being able to beat them in the team fight around that. Probably just take the Baron and win the game off of that, or at least the intention is to do so, which puts them at about the somewhere in the area of the 28 mark, 27-minute mark, which is what they had established as being the expectation here. Where Northern Arizona, they're at least holding enough of resilience to be able to prevent Arizona State from steamrolling over top of them and just winning the game off of the back of them just having better hands, being able to dominate with gold and everything else, getting a billion kills. Arizona State's paying quite a bit of respect to Northern Arizona necessarily. It's working out for them very well. It's led to a slower game, 13 kills in 21 minutes. You call that slow apparently, but that is exactly the case.
I found it funny how during the desk, all of them were just so confident that Arizona State were going to win that instead of predicting a series score line or anything like that, they were actually predicting how many minutes each team it would take for ASU to take both of their wins. So that's kind of what the expectations were coming into this series, as we have kind of harked on a little bit over here. And it seems like ASU trying to match them as we speak. Flag and Drag coming in on to Net, and that is just a one-shot. This is the tank Jarvan, still doing so much work.
I've been very pleasantly surprised by the combination of Firinz and Pseudo in this game. I think both of them are making very aggressive moves. Both of them are making very clean and clear calls across the map to make these aggressive movements work effectively. And now, they get a pick onto Net. That's one of the biggest ultimates that you have in the entire game. And you don't have a timer, right? 5 seconds before you even respawn, and the Dragon will already have been up for those 5 seconds. And that's kind of crazy to think about. So they're going to threaten Baron, but that is not a threat. You do not have a Baron taking composition. Just walk to Dragon. Walk to Dragon. Call them on their bluff. What are they going to do? Misfortune E the Dragon? Or the Baron? My apologies. Not to throw shade, you got nothing. You're betting with no money right now, Northern Arizona. I'm sorry. And I'm glad ASU figured that out.
It's a death brush, I guess?
It's a death brush?
A life brush.
I appreciate this, Northern Arizona. This works in a lot of circumstances. This is not one of them. Arizona State is very smart, and they understand that you are not threatening towards Ben. And they had a ward on it the entire time. No.
So close, but
I don't know
so
if that
far.
I don't know if that got placed down earlier or when they were making the transition. All I know is you would have been able to deduce that if they're threatening that, you would have been able to run right back up to Baron. I'm assuming what happened was they thought Navy was a possibility. They dropped the blue ward on it in the mid lane, and then we're like, oh, they're not on it. Let's just go to Dragon.
Well, let's see if they're maybe extending their eyes towards Baron now. Twig a little bit stunned up here. Does have the flash, but it's pretty tanky so far, so does not have to expand the ability just yet. Finally lands a death charge, but it's right in on the call of a bird. Now, what can the Wombos do? Bullet time issued out, but Juke Jouster is one-shotting Picolo onto the backside, and the front line's not much else about it either. Double kill into Zeshu, and that might be it. Teleport's coming into the mid lane. No Baron buff taken just yet, but I don't know. ASU, they're 5 strong.
Is it funny enough on the full retreat when they're fighting into a choke point, it was easy enough for ASU to actually be able to throw their ultimates together, but the cannon barrage and then also the amazing feather storm that came out there from Jishu, that there's no way to walk towards him in any way. He was just going to keep throwing out feathers until someone prompted the feather pull to come out. That's exactly what happened. They ripped through, and Arizona State, 24 minutes, a couple minutes faster than I think our desk was actually predicting, but again, very clean League of Legends, very good decision-making, expected of a lot of these players, especially Pseudo, to be able to do that. Firinz stepping up big, and everybody having a really remarkably good game. I'm very impressed by what I saw by ASU right there.
Yeah, it seems like the team has really come together. There's been a couple of weeks, maybe even a month, since the Western Conference playoffs ended, with the finals between them and UCI. So, coming into this series, there's not really a lot of tape, at least in terms of recent weeks and what we were expecting out of Arizona State. Now, I wasn't expecting them to come out with anything super flashy in terms of picks throughout this, but it seems like their ability to play together as a team really has strengthened as this break kind of went down.
My understanding is that the flashiest I've ever seen this team really play is when they had Cat on their roof and Firetheft flip back and forth between top and mid and flex a collie sometimes. That was about as weird as they've ever gotten with a draft, which I feel like I just cursed us a little bit, which is a good thing because then we get to see a little bit more wonky of a draft in the second game. But yeah, they went with the standard composition. They played it out to basically perfection. They punished a lot of the mistakes that usually go very unnoticed. That was the thing that impressed me the most, is that there are things that they're doing on the side of Northern Arizona that it really does make the difference between some of the teams that are winning the partner conferences and having a lot of structure with players that are at the top of the challenger ladder. You can see some of the big differences in the decisions that are being made across the board, and Arizona was punishing those to a plum in that game. Got to give them a lot of props for that one.
Yeah, it's pretty standard, really solid League of Legends that we saw out of Arizona State. And for the side of Northern Arizona, they didn't really get the chance to fully use the composition that they set up. They had all the Infinity Stones, just not the gauntlet just yet to put them all into place. And we're talking about the Civil War sort of, so I'm trying to throw some Marvel references in back and forth as we kind of get our way through this series. But let's see if they are able to bounce back. We find enough time for the compositions to come back online. Jensen and the rest of the desk are here to break this game down.
And welcome back to the Analyst Desk, where I have to say that kind of what we expected. Dual predictions across the board, and I would say that the first game definitely goes in line with that. A very simple Drake stacking win condition that was achieved by the side of Arizona State. And let's talk a little bit about some of the ideas that were happening in this game. And I actually like NAU's draft quite a fair bit, but we did see some spicy information coming up from the side of ASU, right? They talked a little bit about Rift Peril, and I'm going to preface this, right? In this game, yes, treating is a priority. You have to bet the better players across the board. This should be a slam dunk. It should be 100% play. But just because of the context of we have to bring up the Rift Herald, and I'm going to throw it over for Tyler to break that down. But before that, this is what we're looking for, right? We're looking for a movement from the bot lane into the mid lane, push the 8-minute wave in the mid lane, and then move over to Rift Herald. That would then allow you to then control the chokes to prevent any possible attempt from the opponent jungler moving in. At the same time, your bot lane has to be ready to move back into the bottom side of the map to catch the wave that will be crashing back into you. So as we bring that replay up, Tyler, let's take a look at what's happening, and then you can evaluate if they are worth their salt when it comes to criticizing other people's Rift Herald plays.
Yeah, ASU posted a tweet about a Rift Herald and teams not being able to execute on it and getting scholarships, but I think they can show some accreditation towards that. They have Nautilus coming up here first, they have top priority coming down GP in there first, and Ahri's there as well, and they get a great fight here with number advantage, just securing the Rift Herald. And as you mentioned, they were ready to turn and not allow blue side to come in, and for North Arizona State, there's just not much you can do in that situation. They have control, they tried to contest, they're like, okay, we don't want to give the Rift Herald, but they just didn't have the setup and the I would say the discipline that Arizona State has to make all those a clean Rift Herald take. And then we also saw them actually have a really nice Rift Herald play after that. I don't know if we have that replay as well, but they brought their mid lane down. They were able to secure a 4-man play bot side while Seraphine had to catch a wave, and that got them a huge lead as well. It got them first tower, got a lot of gold on the Xayah, who was already very far ahead. And I think just the clean early game and macro and teamwork from ASU really shown in this game, and that's why it was so easy.
So from Coach Tyler, they definitely scored an A for Arizona. Sorry, TJ, over to you.
In that play, we actually saw that the Hecarim and the Seraphine had a lot of damage to be able to kill the Jarvan, but unfortunately they just committed when it was a 2v4. So maybe if NAU had decided they wanted to do a Rift Herald, maybe had an extra member or two, maybe just a Wukong, they actually could have maybe had something in the play instead of it just being a complete loss.
Right. Now, let's take a step back, and I said that I like the ideas that NAU had, right? If they looked at it and said, okay, ASU, this is a team they like to drop scaling. We saw double tier coming through from both Misfortune and Seraphine. I like the theoretical approach to the game. But the story of this game was all about execution, and I think TJ has got something to run us through at the top side of the map, and I would say the standout player, Firetheft being the star player, definitely creating some big plays. This is an example of great execution from the side of ASU.
Yeah, so here we see that Firetheft is being turret dove. He's able to drop the ultimate, lands a barrel. Fortunately, misexecution by NAU, but very well played by Firetheft to be able to have the Time Warp Tonic, have the biscuits, or the corrupting potion, and then end up trading a 2-for-1 here. It's not the end of the world if he dies to this or even just gets a 1-for-1, but it's always nice to see that in a situation like this, you're able to clutch up 2 kills. And this kind of separates, I think, teams when it's like, how do you perform in those high stress or just situations where it could go positive, it could go even, could go negative. If this is different, maybe the story of the game changes a little bit. I really doubt it. But again, it's always nice to see it turning up in your favor in these cases.
Right, pressing your buttons and hitting your spells, right? The fundamentals
Yep.
of League of Legends. And on the side of NAU, I really like this idea. They had this 80 strong 80 bruiser, the Seraphine, the wombo combo, the Bronzilla team composition. And we're going to be looking at 17 minutes, this dragon fight over there, right? This is ASU having first setup on it. It's fine for them because they have the likes of Wukong, they have Hecarim. They have the capacity to find these flanks and contest second. But the way that they go up for it, this is the wrong potting. They're trying to loop things around, and fantastic bit coming through from the Ahri to make all this happen. But even with all this happening, you still see the strength of this Hecarim on the spike with the Divine Sunder, being able to trade things back, and it almost turns back in the favor of NAU with the Seraphine ulti combined with the Wukong. But once again, it's a little bit of a fingers difference over here with the use of the Zhonya's, the Flash, and the Feather pullback for ASU to come out ahead in this team fight. But if we're looking at this, once again, fantastic ideas, but the story of this is all about execution, understanding how you set up for things, and of course, press your buttons, hit your spells.
I agree. It's very impressive that they have the right ideas. I would like to see them maybe be a little bit more coordinated on it. So we saw there it was a huge potential to actually win that fight. They just need to play it a little bit better, understand what they're doing better, and maybe press the buttons a little better. Seems like a pretty daunting task. I promise it's not. And then they have a potential win, I think, in one of these games.
Yeah, I've got an idea for NAU. Okay, we're playing in NA, right? It's almost the same as NALCS. Okay, so there's this concept in the NALCS called the NARAM. Okay, and now it's not as strong in some other regions, right? But in NA, if ball up as 5 members and just go together, maybe NAU can find some of these fights using the NARAM method, and be able to have some plays where they actually have their whole team involved. It just felt like constantly throughout this game they kept trying to make fights happen when they just had missing members, or members were going to be really late. And I think if NAU wants to stand a chance and they want to try and have some team fights go on in this game, which it didn't feel like they had almost any team fights, let's just group up, ditch a wave at a timing where you guys want to group and play together, and maybe the NARAM can be successful for their team comp.
And with that, let's take a little bit of step back once again. You're going in now. If you're the coach for NAU, what are the changes you want to make as you move on to the next game? What is one small change you think, okay, if we make this one small change, maybe we have more of a fighting chance here? What would you choose, TJ?
I think I just second what Tyler's saying, where it's like sacking a side wave to group up first and then just press the buttons together. If you do that, you're more than likely to collect some mid-game gold. Maybe a fight goes your way, you get a Baron, and then things turn out positive. I would like to again highlight that I was actually very impressed by the way NAU played. Like, it kind of sucked that Misfortune was down 2 levels, but she didn't die. Like, that's huge to be able to say, like, I'm playing against players that are probably significantly better, and then not die, and being willing to accept the fact that they're going down CS. That's extremely good. That sets you up to be able to come back later. So like Tyler said, group up, press the buttons, continue Bronze Zodia, try nothing too flashy, and maybe again they can secure a win.
Right,
Yeah.
no need for farm, only tiers. Tyler, over to you. The small change you will make.
I want a salty run back. I like the draft. I like their strategy. I want them to play the more, as TJ said, Bronze Zodia comps. Just like comps that are easy execution with a lot of leeway if things don't go well early on in the game. You have like really strong ultimates that are very powerful, that scale well, like the Seraphine, like the Hecarim, like Wukong. I think those champions that they can fight with, as long as they group up, I really like that approach from them. So I want to see it again.
Right, and with that, we will be throwing things over to our casters as we're headed into draft for game number 2. Over to you, Speedy and Rebel.